This is video number 1 from my weight presentation or my weight chapter or module. There is a little bit of disordered eating at the end, but mostly it's on problems of being overweight and weight management. So, when you talk about weight, you have to talk about fat cells. And I think we tend to forget that when we talk about our body fat, it's not butter that's packed onto our body. Body fat is our cells that are full of fat. Muscle cells have some fat. Muscle cells have fat, little droplets of fat that they store to use while when you're exercising. You wait for body fat to show up. Let's say after 10 to 20 minutes. After epinephrine turns everything on, right? Turns the pumps on. Muscles also have glycogen. We know liver stores glycogen. Fat stores fat. Body fat cells store fat. They're technically called adipocytes. And the way it kind of works is pretty simple. When we gain weight, we add more and more fat to our fat cells. That's called hypertrophy. At some point, those cells actually may divide and you may have more fat cells. It is believed, kind of like rule of thumb, by the time you're a young adult, maybe by 30, your number of fat cells that you've accumulated in early adulthood may actually cap. You may have what you have. And no one really kind of knew what was, okay, so you gain weight as you get older, you shrink your cells. You lose weight, you gain weight, you increase the size of your cells. You lose weight, you shrink your cells. And that's about all that people really knew about fat cells. And then there was a great paper that came out about 10 years ago that said, it appears that, and they used a whole bunch of different methods to do this, but it appears that cells actually die. Fat cells, like every other cell, eventually get old and they die, but then we create new fat cells. So, the theory that your number kind of does maintain itself is probably correct. The problem is, if you have a lot of fat cells as a young adult and you're overweight, well, in theory, if you gain a lot of weight, you just shrink the cells. Some of those will die, but they will be replaced. So that probably explains part of the fact why it's hard to keep weight off. It's really 100 million cells that are always asking for more fat. It's easy to lose weight. It's hard to keep it off. So, fat cells do go through this progression of getting bigger, then dividing, and then maybe by adulthood, that number is set. But they do shrink and expand. Shrink and expand. And you should know this a little bit because some of this is enzyme driven, right? We know that lipoprotein lipase is the releaser. Nope, that's not correct. That is the enzyme that brings fat into a cell, let's say from a passing chylomicron. And hormone-sensitive lipase is the releaser. There's clearly evidence to suggest that the activity of these enzymes may differ between people. Remember, women have more LPL in the parts of the body where women are more likely to gain extra fat weight. Hips, breasts, and thighs. Males have more LPL activity in the part of the body where males are more likely to have their apple-shaped weight gain around the abdomen. Women pear-shaped, men apple-shaped. So that's genetic differences in the enzyme. When it comes to the releaser, hormone-sensitive lipase, it has clearly been identified that any two people can have different activity of HSL. And Gary Taubes, who wrote that great book, Good Calorie, Bad Calorie, and Why We Get Fat, that's the name of the book. His argument is, if you look at some of this enzymatic regulation, people may fall into categories. Storers, they're more likely to store based on their genetics, or burners. They're just maybe more likely to burn body fat. And we have to realize that, that you could fall into one of those categories. No matter how well you eat and how well you exercise, you're not the person that you train with at the gym. You're you. And your weight gain and weight loss will be much different, in theory, with somebody else. And then the factors that get us to want to eat more. I mean, some of these are purely instinctive. Like if you have hunger, you physiologically want to eat. Your body's telling you, I'm low on glucose. You have low blood sugar. You need to eat. Appetite's different. Appetite is a desire to eat. It doesn't have to be linked with hunger. You can have eaten a full meal and then go to a party and you see other people eating, snacking, and drinking, and you end up eating, snacking, and drinking even though you clearly have no need for hunger. So that's agreeable by most folks. Who you eat with, the influence of advertising, the amount that you eat, how often you eat, all those can be affected by appetite. And as we will talk about this chapter, appetite can also be driven by hormones. So it's very interesting. Finally, when you eat, things happen. Okay? If you eat food and become full, we call that satiation. Okay, making sure I get this right. And so you become full. If you continue to stay full, that's called satiety. Different nutrients respond differently when you eat them. Protein, generally protein and very fiber-rich foods, they have a tendency to fill you up physically and you become full. Those are some of the most satiating foods. Steak and asparagus, they physically just fill you up. Some foods keep you full, and that one food is fat. When we generally eat a low-fat diet, food is digested a lot quicker. Right? Fat slows everything down. We didn't talk about this in the GI tract lecture, but there is another hormone made when you eat fat. It's called GIP, gastric inhibitory peptide, and that actually slows down peristalsis. So your food that you ate stays longer in the GI tract because fat takes longer to digest, which is good. Because if fat takes longer to digest, you won't be then ready to eat again. So we see folks that go on very low fat diet plans, very low fat diet plans. You're eating all the time. This is the 1980s. Everything was low fat, no fat. You had a decade of Americans just eating all the time, easily processed, high carbohydrate foods. I think we all agree that was a failure of an experiment. So what we try to recommend folks is, plan your meals smartly. Make sure there's some protein to get full. And remember, the AMDR, the recommended range for fat, is 20 to 35% of calories. You absolutely can have fat with every meal. We would prefer it's not bacon fat. Animal fat's good. Plant fat is great. Nut fat, olive oil. So you're trying to fill yourself up with lean protein and dietary fiber, salad, vegetables, right? Very low sugary foods, by the way. And then add some healthy fat to each meal so you stay full, so you're not snacking all the time.